Kennedy Center board votes to inscribe Trump's name on building. What happened? Reuters, The Washington Post, The New York Times, and CNBC describe a governance decision tied to the Washington arts venue and its facade text, stakes. The practical issue is governance and public accountability. Whether the venue's board, court filings, or federal arts officials change the plan before work proceeds. The safe visual is the actual Kennedy Center exterior on the Potomac, not a courtroom, gavel, or generated political portrait. Watch next. Watch for a dated board notice, renovation filing, court order, or statement from the center that says whether the inscription moves ahead, pauses, or changes scope. For Item 1, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should cite the board action, filing, agency statement, or venue notice that changes what the public can verify. For now, the useful takeaway is the confirmed venue status, responsible board, and next public checkpoint. Consequence for Item 1. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells patrons, artists, managers, and officials what building decision comes next. Detail 1.1. Added venue record gives audiences concrete follow-up without speculation. Detail 1.2. Added venue record gives audiences concrete follow-up without speculation. Trump administration's antisemitism lawsuit against Harvard is dismissed. What happened? Reuters, The Washington Post, PBS, and The New York Times report that a federal judge rejected the case over Harvard's handling of antisemitism claims. Stakes. The next consequence is legal and institutional. Appeals, compliance demands, funding pressure, or campus policy records could still alter what Harvard and federal officials do. The safe visual is Harvard's campus as the institution at issue, not a fabricated courtroom scene or a generated likeness of any public official. Watch next. Watch the docket for any appeal notice, amended claim, settlement signal, or agency statement that changes the legal posture. For Item 2, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should identify the docket entry, university response, agency statement, or appeal notice that changes the posture. For now, the useful takeaway is the court result, Harvard response, and next legal checkpoint. Consequence for Item 2, audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells students, administrators, federal lawyers, and alumni what legal choice comes next. Detail 2.1. Named campus checkpoint keeps the brief useful and accountable. Detail 2.2. Named campus checkpoint keeps the brief useful and accountable. Detail 2.3. Named campus checkpoint keeps the Luigi Mangione expected to plead guilty in New York federal case. What happened? Reuters, NBC News, The New York Times, and NPR report that the Manhattan proceeding is moving toward a formal admission connected to the United Healthcare killing case. Stakes. The important point is procedural. Plea terms, sentencing exposure, and the separate New York murder case all depend on official court records, not rumor. The safe visual is a New York federal courthouse context image, avoiding any generated defendant likeness, victim imagery, or staged crime scene. Watch next. Watch for the plea hearing transcript, accepted charges, sentencing schedule, and any statement clarifying how federal and state cases interact. For Item 3, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should point to the plea transcript, court order, sentencing schedule, or prosecutor filing that changes the case record. For now, the useful takeaway is the case posture, responsible court, and next hearing checkpoint. Consequence for Item 3. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells families, lawyers, court staff, and reporters what case step comes next. Detail 3.1. Court record trail is the guardrail for the next update. Detail 3.2. Court record trail is the guardrail for the next. Mamdani's NYC pied-à-terre tax can continue rollout during court appeal. What happened? CNBC, Bloomberg, Fox News, and Bloomberg Law report that New York's luxury home tax process can keep moving while an appeal continues. Stakes. The stakes are municipal revenue, high-value property owners, and whether the appeals court eventually narrows or upholds the city's approach. The safe visual is New York courthouse in urban property context, not a generated candidate portrait, fabricated tax bill, or unrelated luxury interior. Watch next. Watch the next docket entry, implementation notice, city guidance, or ruling that says whether assessments continue unchanged. For Item 4, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should cite the appeal order, city notice, tax guidance, or property filing that changes implementation. For now, the useful takeaway is the city tax posture, appeal path, and next implementation checkpoint. Consequence for Item 4. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells taxpayers, owners, city officials, and courts what implementation choice comes next. Detail 4.1, named tax office or filing is the next practical test. Detail 4.2, named tax office or filing is the next practical test. Detail 4.3, named tax office or filing is the next practical test. More Whole Foods products recalled in salmonella outbreak, see list. What happened? Fast Company USA Today The Hill and CBS News report expanded recalls tied to jalapeno-containing products and salmonella risk. Stakes. For households, the immediate issue is product checking. Stores, suppliers, and public health agencies have to identify affected items and update illness counts. The safe visual is a real jalapeno food image, not a branded fabricated recall notice, a store logo, or patient imagery. Watch next. Watch for CDC or company updates naming additional products, states, case totals, disposal guidance, or the end of the recall window. For item 5, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should name the recall list, supplier notice, CDC count, or store guidance that changes household action. For now, the useful takeaway is the affected food category, recall authority, and next consumer checkpoint. Consequence for item 5. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells shoppers, stores, suppliers, and health agencies what product action comes next. Detail 5.1, official recall update is the action step for households. Detail 5.2, official recall update is the action step for households. Detail 5.3, official recall update is the action step for households. White House accuses over 40 countries of helping China avoid U.S. tariffs. What happened? The Hill, Financial Times, AP, and South China Morning Post report the White House allegation that transshipment is helping goods evade tariff costs. Stakes. The consequence is trade enforcement. Customs guidance, country-by-country scrutiny, and negotiations can affect importers, retailers, and diplomatic partners. The safe visual is cargo port infrastructure, matching the customs and transshipment issue without fabricated charts or politician portraits. Watch next. Watch for formal customs rules, named country responses, court challenges, or trade talk records that show whether enforcement changes. For item 6, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should cite customs rules, country responses, importer guidance, or trade filings that change enforcement. For now, the useful takeaway is the trade enforcement claim, affected routes, and next customs checkpoint. Consequence for item 6. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells importers, customs officers, retailers, and diplomats what trade choice comes next. Detail 6.1, customs filing is the next test for trade markets. Detail 6.2, customs filing is the next test for trade markets. Detail 6.3, customs filing is the next test for trade markets. Detail 6.4, customs filing is the next test for. Charlie Kirk suspect fights death penalty, says no others were in danger. What happened? The New York Times, The Hill, AP, and Fox News report defense arguments over whether the death penalty can apply in the killing case. Stakes. The core issue is legal threshold, not spectacle. Judges must assess filings, statutory requirements, and prosecution responses before punishment questions advance. The safe visual is a Utah courthouse, avoiding the suspect, the victim, weapons, reenactment, or any violent image. Watch next. Watch for the court's order on eligibility, new defense motions, prosecution replies, and any hearing schedule that frames the next phase. For item 7, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should identify the court order, defense filing, prosecution reply, or hearing calendar that changes penalty exposure. For now, the useful takeaway is the legal threshold, pending motion, and next court checkpoint. Consequence for item 7. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells prosecutors, defense lawyers, judges, and the public what penalty question comes next. Detail 7.1, court calendar entry is the next legal marker. Detail 7.2, court calendar entry is the next legal marker. Detail 7.3, court calendar entry is the next legal marker. Ukraine attacks Russian grain export terminals in Black Sea, prompting warning about food markets. What happened? Reuters, CNBC, Al Jazeera, and NBC News report Black Sea grain terminal disruption and the risk that port attacks can affect food market stability. Stakes. The consequence is maritime and economic. Export capacity, insurance costs, and diplomatic pressure can shift if terminals remain vulnerable. The safe visual is a port and cargo terminal scene, not an explosion, battlefield clip, or fabricated same-day attack image. Watch next. Watch for port operation updates, shipping advisories, grain price reactions, and official statements from Ukraine, Russia, or international food agencies. For item 8, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should cite port operations, shipping advisories, grain prices, or government statements that change food market risk. For now, the useful takeaway is the port disruption, market exposure, and next shipping checkpoint. Consequence for item 8. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells shippers, grain buyers, port operators, and food agencies what market choice comes next. Detail 8.1 Shipping advisory is the next grain market marker. Detail 8.2 Shipping advisory is the next grain market marker. Detail 8.3 Shipping advisory is the next grain market marker. Detail 8.4 Shipping advisory is the next grain market. Russian plot to kill American citizen thwarted by Poland, Prime Minister says. First situation of its kind. What happened? CBS News, PBS, NBC News, and Bloomberg report Polish claims that authorities stopped an alleged Russian-backed plot targeting an American citizen in Warsaw. Stakes. The stakes are counterintelligence and alliance security. Investigators must document suspects, charges, and any link to foreign direction through official proceedings. The safe visual is NATO or Polish security institution context, not an assassination reenactment, weapon image, or identifiable private person. Watch next. Watch for Polish court records, government briefings, allied statements, and whether prosecutors release charge details. For item 9, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should name Polish court records, prosecutor details, allied statements, or security briefings that change the allegations. For now, the useful takeaway is the Polish allegation, security process, and next prosecutorial checkpoint. Consequence for item 9, audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells investigators, diplomats, prosecutors, and allies what security step comes next. Detail 9.1, prosecutor filing is the next alliance security marker. Detail 9.2, prosecutor filing is the next alliance security marker. Detail 9.3, prosecutor filing is the next alliance security marker. Detail 9.4, prosecutor filing is the next. Live updates, latest from Israel, Iran, and the Middle East. What happened? Reuters, Al Jazeera, CBS News, and the Jerusalem Post report continuing regional diplomacy and security claims involving governments across the area. Stakes. The key issue is verification. Claims about threats, talks, and possible arrangements need dated statements from governments or named negotiators. The safe visual is a real diplomatic context image, not fabricated war footage, casualties, explosions, or generated leader imagery. Watch next. Watch for official readouts, negotiation schedules, parliamentary votes, coalition statements, or public evidence that confirms or narrows the latest claims. For item 10, name source records set the boundary of the story today. A later update should cite official readouts, negotiation schedules, coalition votes, or public evidence that narrows regional claims. For now, the useful takeaway is the regional claim, verifying source, and next diplomatic checkpoint. Consequence for item 10. Audiences can separate verified action from speculation by waiting for that record before assuming costs, authority, safety, penalties, or diplomacy have changed. The follow-up also tells negotiators, lawmakers, security officials, and publics what diplomatic step comes next. Detail 10.1, official readout is the next regional marker. Detail 10.2, official readout is the next regional marker. Detail 10.3, official readout is the next regional marker. Detail 10.4, official readout is the next regional marker.